In this video, we'll be explaining
all 12
demon
demons
moons in Demon Slayer. We'll talk about their previous lives as humans, as well as the events of their new lives as members of 12 Kizuki. We'll start with the former lower rank 6 Kyogai, but in the later parts of the video, we'll be covering much stronger and more interesting demons. Kyogai, also known as Drum Demon, is the primary antagonist in the Tsutsumi Mansion arc. He was a demon formerly affiliated with the 12 Kizuki's lower ranks, having held the position of lower
His
rank
death was
6.
so sad.
While he was still a member of the 12 Kizuki, Kyogai slowly lost the ability to eat humans. He was visited by Muzan Kibutsuji, who removed his number due to the drum demon having reached his limit. Because of this, Kyogai obsessively began his quest to rejoin the organization. At some point, Kyogai captured Kiyoshi due to him possessing rare blood and took him to the drum house. Before he could eat him, he was attacked by 2 other demons who were also after Kiyoshi's rare blood, suffering an injury that dislodged the drum from his back. He passed by the room Tanjiro and Teruku were in, annoyed by the presence of all the intruders in his territory, slapping the drum on his right shoulder when the former attempted to attack him, which changed the orientation of the room. With the arrival of Inosuke, the drum demon struck his right shoulder again. As Tanjiro and Inosuke quarreled, Kyogai struck the drum on his stomach twice, each time launching a slashing claw attack. He then struck his shoulder drums multiple times, sending his adversaries flying in a disorganized mess. As he stepped in the direction of Inosuke, he, along with everyone else, were transported into different rooms. He happened upon Tanjiro in the course of his wandering, striking a drum to flip the room upside down, striking another to initiate his claw attack, along with a slew of others to disorientate his.
That's actually interesting. I didn't know that the other 2 demons that they were fighting were fighting this demon to get the
memories from the past
human's
caused
blood.
Kyogai to snap and initiated his rapid drumming technique and sparking a maelstrom of effects. Tanjiro evaded a collection of manuscripts that fell from a shelf on the ceiling, which surprised the former Kizuki. Despite his continued slash attacks and orientation changes to the room, Kyogai's opponent continued to close on him by using a certain water-breathing technique. The former Kizuki was further surprised when Tanjiro complimented his blood demon art before decapitating him. He asked the youth if he really thought his techniques were powerful, which was confirmed. But he was told that eating humans was unforgivable. Fading into oblivion, Kyogai reflected on how Tanjiro had seen the value in all of his work, tears running down his face. Next demon moon on our list is Rui. Rui was a former lower rank 5 and a member of the spider family that he created who lived at Natagumo Mountain. Many years ago, Rui was born with a weak, frail, and easily stressed human body that even the very act of walking and breathing was difficult for him to do, causing him to spend a majority of his life trapped within his home, being cared for by his mother and father, who despite his frailty, deeply loved and cherished him. One night, Rui was approached by Muzan Kibutsuji, who then offered to save him and transform him into a demon. Now possessing a strong body, Rui was finally able to move freely for the first time, bringing joy and happiness to his parents. However, this did not last. As he was now a demon, Rui needed to obtain sustenance by eating humans, which then caused him to kill a man inside his home. His parents then tried to kill him, but Rui killed them both instead in self-defense. Due to repressing his painful memories as a human, Rui requested to Muzan if he could create a family for himself. The latter then allowed him, and he began to gather suitable family members who would each take the role of his new parents and siblings. He then created the so-called Spider Family. During a Natagumo Mountain arc, Rui engages in battle with Tanjiro. When Tanjiro attempted to strike aside a thread with his water breathing, his sword breaks the moment it makes contact with the thread. Rui continues with a patient assault, striking with his threads, which Tanjiro continues to dodge with some difficulty. A large web descends on Tanjiro, unable to dodge or block the strike. He is protected by Nezuko. While Tanjiro tends to Nezuko's injuries, the spider demon sister speaks, noting how Nezuko emerged
I already
from her
felt bad
box
for
to
the
protect
sister
Tanjiro.
and the mom
Despite being a demon,
of the
Rui
family.
takes interest in Nezuko and demands that Tanjiro hand her over to him. Tanjiro refuses, but Rui grabs Nezuko anyway. Tanjiro uses his total concentration, water breathing, to cut Rui's threads, something he had been unable to do up to that point. Due to a potential threat, Rui unleashes his blood demon art. In a moment of desperation and near death, Tanjiro, for the first time ever in battle, uses the Hinokami Kagura and is able to slice through Rui's reinforced threads. With his new strength, Tanjiro presses the attack and is able to get the upper hand against Rui. Awakening, Nezuko helps her brother, unlocking and using her blood demon art, both burning Rui, his threads, and enhancing Tanjiro's sword, to the point he is able to behead Rui. Rui reveals himself to be alive, having beheaded himself to avoid Tanjiro's sword. As Rui uses his blood demon art, Murderous Eye Basket, Giyu arrives and destroys the technique. Water
To
Hashira
Giga Chat
soon
himself.
with ease decapitates Lower Moon. Since Muzan killed all of the remaining lower ranks, leaving only Enmu alive, we will
I think we don't appreciate how easy that was for Tamioka to just like
jump straight to Enmu.
slice his
Stay
head like
tuned
that.
because in a few minutes, we'll start explaining much more interesting Upper Moon demons. Enmu knew that he had been converted due to Muzan's whim and would only remember him in passing. So Enmu did his best to ascend to the position of lower rank 1. After being the last remaining Lower Moon alive, when asked for his final words, Enmu expresses joy at Muzan killing him personally and for the suffering of humans and his fellow ranks, thanking his leader for leaving him until last. Muzan then changes his mind as he glances at him. Enmu was then stabbed by a needle-like appendage in the neck and given a generous amount of Muzan's blood, with Muzan telling him to be useful to him by
Gave him
killing the
some
Demon
strength.
Slayer Corps' Hashira. Muzan promises that if he kills the Demon Slayer with Hanafuda earrings, Tanjiro Kamado, Enmu will get even more blood. Enmu then devises a plan to put all Demon Slayers and passengers aboard Mugen train to sleep. Later, he stands upon
almost
the
did it.
steam engine, remarking that dying while dreaming is a blessing. One of Enmu's hands
He almost
speaks
did
with
it.
the train's conductor about the success of putting the Demon Slayers to sleep and do the same to him. Shortly after, he turns as Tanjiro approaches him, greeting him and stating that he showed him a pleasant dream, but could have made it a nightmare. Thanks to Tanjiro and Inosuke's joint effort, they managed to discover Enmu's head and subsequently behead him by completely cutting off the train's top engine compartment. Enmu, in complete disbelief at his failure, begins to curse all the Demon Slayers and the upper ranks due to being inferior to them in power. As his body slowly disintegrates, he attempts to at least kill the weakened Tanjiro and Inosuke, but only failed once more as his body
Yeah.
began to crumble faster. Now, the part you've all been waiting for. Let's start explaining
The upper
Moon
moons.
demons. There's a total of 9 upper rank demons, so we'll start with the number 9, Kaigaku. Kaigaku was a former demon slayer and Zenitsu's senior disciple under the former Thunder
9?
Hashira, Jigoro Kuwajima.
Says upper
Kaigaku
6.
was an orphan and a thief who had to eat scraps and steal to survive. He was
I
one
think
of
he's
the
dead.
orphans Gyome Himejima cared for
We don't
at
see
his
him in the
temple.
anime.
After he was caught by the other children for stealing temple money, he was chased out at night and encountered a demon, which he then led into the temple in exchange for having his life spared. Kaigaku developed the belief that strength and survival were the only things worth respecting and was willing
wait.
to grovel and beg for his life if that's what it took to survive. Eventually, he was taken in
That's
by
the upper
Jigoro
one.
along with Zenitsu, learning thunder breathing. He became determined to become Jigoro's successor and the new Thunder Hashira. Jigoro, however, insisted that both he and Zenitsu would become his successors, despite Zenitsu's weakness and timid nature. During the Hashira training arc, Zenitsu receives word that Kaigaku had become a demon and that Jigoro committed seppuku as atonement. Kaigaku had the unfortunate luck of encountering Kokushibu and, upon witnessing
Yeah,
the latter's
number 1.
immense power, kneeled before him and begged to become a demon. As a demon, Kaigaku had eaten many people and became powerful enough to become the new upper rank 6 of the 12 Kuzuki. Inside the Infinity Castle, he encounters Zenitsu and the two engage in combat. He's ultimately beheaded by Zenitsu's thunder breathing. Kaigaku mockingly comments that their master did favor Zenitsu more for teaching him that form, until Zenitsu admits that the technique was his own making in order to fight alongside Kaigaku as equals. Kaigaku notes that Zenitsu was going to die from severe exhaustion, only for him to be saved by Yushiro in the last seconds. Kaigaku's head screams in anger as he disintegrates. Number 8. Doki. Doki is the secondary holder of the position of upper rank 6, a position she shares with the primary holder, her older brother, Gyutaro. She is one of the primary antagonists in the
She is so
Entertainment
annoying.
District arc. Doki
She was
born
so
many
annoying
years
the
ago
whole
with the birth
time.
name of Ume in the Entertainment District's area. Her birth
But-
mother was a prostitute there, having given birth to her elder brother a few years before. When Ume was born, their mother hated her due to her hair color and eyes and would try to kill her. Ume was primarily raised by her
Yeah,
elder
I
brother
swear
until
all
her
demons
early
had
teen
like a
years
bad-
when her mother passed away from the disease known as Ume, the same sickness she was then named after. Growing up, she was
damn.
very beautiful. In her early teen years, she was finally chosen to work in one of the entertainment district's high-class brothels. Ume began making a fortune by attracting many suitors and customers to the brothel due to her beauty. At the same time, her elder brother began working as her collector and would collect money and debts owed to the brothel. However, this all came to an end when Ume poked out the eye of a samurai, a customer of hers, when he insulted her brother while her brother was away.
And then she
collecting
burned her
debts.
alive.
In
Holy shit.
retaliation to this, she was tied, burned alive, and left to die in a ditch. She was then discovered by her brother, who killed both samurai
And then
and
he
the
snapped.
manager of the brothel. He carried her around town searching for help, but no one would help them. As Gyutaro collapsed from exhaustion and fatigue from his severe wounds, Doma, who was upper rank 6 at the time, happened to notice the siblings while wandering the district in
broski
search of
upgraded.
beautiful girls to devour. Taking pity on them, he offered to help the pair by turning them into demons, claiming that it was because he was a nice guy. He then challenged them to become strong enough to be chosen by Muzan Kibutsuji and join the 12 Kizuki.
They basically replaced his rank.
Himself. The activities of both her and her brother eventually caught the attention of Muzan, who acknowledged their strength and power and officially allowed them to join the 12 Kizuki, and both were given the rank of upper rank
him
6.
and
After she
Daki and
encountered
Muzan had
Zenitsu,
some weird
she was
relationship,
dressed
man.
as one of the girls. The Daki pondered over Zenitsu's identity, noting he might be a demon slayer. She later appeared behind Koinatsu, seeking to eat her before she left to be married, but was stopped by Tanjiro. Dismissing the youth for his weakness, Daki soon grew enraged when he demanded she releases Koinatsu and attack the demon slayer with her sashes. After she engages with Tanjiro, Daki was shocked when Tanjiro cut through her sashes with the Hinokami Kagura technique. During their battle, she overpowers Tanjiro, and Nezuko jumps in and saves him. After Tengen Uzui, Sound Hashira finally appeared. He slashed her head off in an instant, telling her that she's not strong enough to be upper rank 6. Number 7.
Oh, that was so
Gyutaro.
flashy.
After her sister Daki called out for him, Gyutaro emerged from her body, quickly taking her to another part of the room and reattaching her severed head. Tengen attacked the pair, but Gyutaro quickly countered it, injuring the Hashira. The
That was an
mysterious
epic
demon
fight, man.
unleashed his blood demon art, flying blood sickles, a barrage of blood blades that failed to injure Tengen. During his battle with Sound Hashira, Gyutaro was surprised by Hashira's sword skills. Gyutaro barely deflected one of the attacks, but was left with a slight wound to his neck. He warned Tengen of his impending death, only to be surprised by the arrival of Inosuke and Zenitsu. The mysterious demon reiterated his death threat, believing the arrival of the Hashira's subordinates to be insufficient. He also mentioned how he and his sister had eaten numerous Hashiras, 15 and 7 respectively. Gyutaro closed one of his eyes and quickly attacked Tanjiro. He nearly struck a blow to the youth's neck, but was thwarted by Tengen at the last second, causing him to only stab him in the chin mere inches away from the fatal strike, and proceeded to exchange a flurry of blows with his opponent. Gyutaro manages to poison Hashira, wounding him severely, but Tengen had enough strength left to help Tanjiro defeat the demon, cutting his head off, while Zenitsu and Inosuke defeated his sister at the same time. As their heads began to disintegrate, Daki screamed at her brother, blaming him for their defeat, while Gyutaro retaliated that Daki was weak and had nothing to help. Saddened by the siblings' bickering, Tanjiro then stepped in,
That was a
covering
messed up
Gyutaro's
moment
mouth
too.
to stop him from screaming abuse at his sister and pleading with them to try and get along, as they only had each other left in the world. Number 6. Gyoko. Gyoko is a demon affiliated with the 12 Kizuki, holding the position of upper rank 5. Gyoko lived on the outskirts of a fishing village near the coast and was disliked for repeatedly
like a
collecting
fish?
fish carcasses and doing other strange things. Sometime
yeah.
afterward, Gyoko killed
Other
a village
strange things.
child who came to tease him and stuffed the body in a jar. In a rage, the child's parents stabbed Gyoko with a 2-pronged fishing fork. He was left to die there,
damn.
and Muzan Kibutsuji was passing by, so he turned Gyoko into a demon. At the swordsmith's village, Gyoko devoured an unsuspecting villager and spat him right back out, stating that it wasn't edible. He then noted that destroying the swordsmith's village would severely weaken the demon slayers. When Muichiro and the 2 villagers came upon the shed looking for a new sword, Gyoko ambushes them from a ceramic pot. Once attacked by Muichiro, he retreats inside his ceramic pot and reveals he can transport himself from pot to pot at will. He explains that the pots are his pride and artwork, and becomes very upset when they're damaged. He then summons many fish from a pot and uses his blood demon art to attack
His
Muichiro.
freaking pots,
He
man.
traps Muichiro with his blood demon art, water prison pot, commenting that death by suffocation is stylish and beautiful. While Muichiro struggles to escape the water prison, Gyoko advanced upon the shed. He enters and sees Hotaro working on the blade extracted from the training doll. Hotaro doesn't notice Gyoko's entrance behind him, enraging Gyoko at the prospect of another artist more concentrated on his craft than he. He summons a fish to attack Hotaro, breaking the swordsman's mask, but not his concentration. Hotaru's dedication to the blade incentivizes Gyoko to force him to break his concentration, Rather than straight up murdering him, Muichiro escapes from the water prison with the help from Kutetsu, surprising Gyoko and causing him to unleash Octopus Vase Hell. Muichiro's mist breathing nicks Gyoko, and he ducks back into his pot, reappearing in a different pot. He argues with Muichiro about the beauty of his pots, becoming enraged after an insult to their balance, and unleashes his blood demon art. After Muichiro deflects 2 of his attacks, Gyoko reveals his true form and becomes more serious about killing him. Gyoko's true form has the ability to turn anything he punches into fish, and his heightened speed and strength. Muichiro uses the mist-breathing 7th form to decapitate Gyoko, killing him, much to his disbelief. Number 5. Huntengu. As a human, Huntengu was known to have committed many heinous crimes, stealing from numerous innocent people and murdering them in various towns and cities, all while claiming that he was innocent and it wasn't him that committed these crimes. He blamed that his hands were solely to blame for his actions. Eventually, he was captured by a high-ranked law official, magistrate, and sentenced to death by decapitation, despite his outrageous claims of innocence that were then silenced by threatening to cut off his sinful hands instead. While imprisoned and awaiting his execution, he was approached by Muzan Kibutsuji, who offered to help him after taking pity on his situation. At the swordsmith's village, Huntengu crawled on the roof of a building, eager to fulfill their mission to avoid Muzan's wrath. He encountered Tanjiro and Muichiro, swiftly avoiding an attack from the latter. He dodged a follow-up attack from Tanjiro, only to be kicked by Nezuko. His head was then severed by another attack from Muichiro, causing him to regenerate into 2 different demons, Sekido and Karaku. As Muichiro and Tanjiro attempted to attack these newcomers, Karaku blew Muichiro far into the distance with a single wave of his Uchiwa fan. The 2 then confronted Tanjiro and Nezuko, briefly exchanging biting comments at each other, with Sekido then attacking Tanjiro with a burst of electricity from his staff. The 2 failed to notice Genya approaching them from behind with a gun. Genya's shot was hit, decapitating Sekido, but failing to do the same for Karaku, much to the latter's amusement. The young demon slayer finished the job with his sword, but the 2 then turned into 4. One of the new demons, reminiscent of a Tengu, grabbed Tanjiro by the leg and flew off with him, while the other impaled Genya. The former congratulated Tanjiro on figuring out their strategy, while the latter commented on Genya's weakness. Tanjiro urged Nezuko to help Genya, prompting his abductor to reprimand him for this, before firing a concussive blast of sound at the demon slayer. In the end, Tanjiro manages to behead him using Hinokami Kagura, Flame Dance. However, the head Tanjiro just cut was not the real Huntengu, proven as the headless body of Huntengu continues to run away. As the sun is about to rise, Tanjiro finally decides to continue in pursuit. He eventually locates Huntengu's real body inside of headless Huntengu's heart. Huntengu finally dies after having his torso slashed by Tanjiro. However, Huntengu managed to inform Muzan about Nezuko's immunity to the sunlight beforehand. Number 4. Nakime. After Huntengu's death, Nakime became the new upper rank 4 of the 12 Kizuki. When the Demon Slayer Corps arrive at the Ubuyashiki mansion to try and stop Muzan, they are all transported into the Infinity Castle and separated from one another by Nakime. Obanai and Mitsuri are the first to encounter her, but find it extremely difficult to land blows on her due to her control over the environment. Later, during the beginning of Tanjiro and Gyu's fight with Muzan, the latter reveals that Nakime has successfully defeated both Obanai and Mitsuri by crushing them both to death using the rooms of her castle. However, he is taken by surprise when the supposedly dead duo launch a surprise attack on him, still very much alive, and angrily asks Nakime what she's doing. Muzan is shocked upon learning that Yushiro has completely taken control of Nakime's vision, and with it, the Infinity Castle, which he begins to use against the Demon Lord as revenge for his killing of Tamayo. Muzan immediately begins countering Yushiro, using his own mental powers in order to take back his final upper rank, which kicks off a fierce battle of wills between the two demons. This mental fight causes the castle to completely spiral out of control, as both wrestle for dominance, and just as Muzan appears to have taken the upper hand, Obanai and Gyu launch an attack on the Demon Lord. He has no choice but to counter, which causes his hold on Nakime to slip as he tries to defend himself and ward the Hashiras off with his own attacks. Soon realizing that he can't take back Nakime and fight the Demon Slayers at the same time, Muzan uses his powers to kill his final upper rank by crushing her head, which prevents Yushiro from using the castle against him and allows him to fully focus on killing the remaining Hashiras. Number 3. Akaza. Akaza is a demon affiliated with the 12 Kizuki, holding the position of upper rank 3. In the past, Akaza's name was Hakuji. He was born and raised in the slums to a stickly father whom he loved deeply. In order to pay for medicine, Hakuji pickpocketed from people in town, but was caught 3 times. The magistrate beat him and marked him with tattoos, threatening to cut off his arms the next time he was caught, and calling him a demon child. When Hakuji returned home after his 3rd beating, a villager informed him that his father, having heard of his arrest, hung himself. In the letter he left, he stated he wanted Hakuji to live a full life and didn't want to take medicine if it was earned by dishonest means. With his criminal tattoos and no home to return to, Hakuji was eventually banished from Edo. He eventually met a man named Keizo, the owner of a local dojo. Keizo then took him in so he could nurse Koyuki, Keizo's sickly daughter. One day, Keizo offered to let Hakuji take over the dojo and take Koyuki as his bride, to Hakuji's surprise and embarrassment. He agreed, silently vowing to protect both of them, even at the cost of his own life. Hakuji went to visit his father's grave to inform him of his marriage, but quickly realized something was amiss upon his return. A student from the dojo informed him that the rival dojo had poisoned the well where Koyuki and Keizo drank water from. The 2 died shortly after drinking that water while Hakuji had been away. Enraged, Hakuji killed all 67 members of the rivaling dojo with his bare hands, pulverizing them to the point where their corpses were no longer recognizable. This incident caught Muzan Kibutsuji's attention, and though he was disappointed to find that it had been a human rather than a demon who'd done such a gruesome act, he decided to make Hakuji one of the 12 Kizuki. Hakuji, with nothing left to protect and having lost his will to live, accepts and becomes the demon Akaza. After transforming, he lost his memories of the time he was a human.
A lot of demons turn into a lot of humans turn into demons when they just don't like
only
have
decided to
anything
become
do anymore.
stronger,
Like
despite
they just
not
give
knowing
up.
the reason why he wanted to become strong. Akaza appears shortly after the demon slayers have defeated Enmu and rescued the passengers. Noticing a downed Tanjiro, he immediately rushes forward to kill him when Kyojuro stops the attack and slices his arm in half. He attempts to persuade him to become a demon. He states that, as a human, he would eventually become old and die, whereas as a demon, he could continue to become more powerful. Akaza and Kyojuro battle fiercely, with Tanjiro and Inosuke looking from a distance, both knowing the two are on a completely different level of power. Akaza starts to make contact with his attacks, severely injuring the Hashira. All of Kyojuro's sword blows are futile with the demon's rapid healing abilities, and he starts to become desperate with multiple flame-breathing attacks. Akaza suddenly backs away, allowing Kyojuro to catch his breath, only for Tanjiro and Inosuke to see him bleeding profusely, in contrast to a completely fine and healed Akaza. Kyojuro's body suddenly becomes engulfed in fire, declaring he will fulfill his duty as a Hashira, to the demon's confusion and wonder. They hit each other, with Kyojuro slicing Akaza's arm, torso, and almost through his neck, and Akaza driving his arm through Rengoku's solar plexus. The sun begins to rise, and Akaza attempts to flee, but is held in place by Kyojuro refusing to surrender. Tanjiro and Inosuke attempt to aid Hashira, Inosuke using his beast breathing to attack the demon. Akaza suddenly rips off his own arms from Kyojuro's body and stomps the ground, creating a shockwave to knock Inosuke away and give himself the chance to flee. Akaza reports back to Muzan that he killed one of the Hashiras, but Muzan retorts it was only one Hashira and declares his desire is for all to be dead. Angered at his failure, Muzan takes control of Akaza's cells and causes him to bleed heavily. In the Infinity Castle, Akaza ambushes Tanjiro and Gyu. The fight between the three begins. As Akaza advances, Tanjiro dodges his punch and uses the Hinokami Kagura on Akaza, and with considerable effort, severs the upper rank's arm. Gyu enters the fight, immediately using the water breathing. Akaza is instantly impressed, as it had been 50 years since he ran into someone as good as Gyu. After a long battle between the three, Akaza admits defeat, stating that Tanjiro's technique was magnificent and that he wants to go to hell like a man. He imagines his father and Keizo, but when he remembers Muzan asking if he wanted to get stronger, he begins to regenerate. He is stopped by Koyuki, thankful about Hakuji recovering his memories and thanking him for what he had done. Finally finding peace, Akaza disintegrates, dying as Hakuji, a loyal son, a protective student, and a faithful lover.
It wasn't really that bad, huh?
Doma. Doma is one of the strongest demons in 12 Kizuki, being the upper rank 2. When he was a human child, because of his beautiful rainbow-colored eyes and pure white hair, Doma was seen as a supernatural being since birth and is groomed into the religious
really good
leader
looking
of the
for a
Paradise Faith Cult, a position he maintains to the present day. At 20 years old, he met Muzan Kibutsuji, who transformed him into a demon. At the gathering of the upper ranks, Doma questioned Akaza's lack of concern for him, placing a hand on his colleague's shoulder. He expressed his worry for his comrade's safety, and irritated Akaza tells Doma to move his hand, punching him when he didn't immediately comply. Regenerating the damage almost instantly, Doma complimented his fellow upper rank, wondering if he had gotten stronger since their last meeting. Soon after, Muzan arrived, and upper rank 2 listened as his leader reported Gyutaro's death. Later, inside the Infinity Castle, as he is consuming a group of his female disciples, Doma notices Shinobu at the entrance to his room. He reacts with delight at having another meal walk right into his room. Shinobu notices a pair of sharp fans that Doma uses as his main weapon, and angrily inquires if he remembers the Haori that originally belonged to his elder sister. Doma finally remembers her by the butterfly wing design Haori that Kane once wore, and playfully expresses his disappointment at not being able to eat Kane due to the sun rising. The insect Hashira swiftly launches an attack at him, using her insect breathing to inflict a powerful stab directly in Doma's right eyeball, which impresses him since he couldn't block it. She tries to poison him, but learns that Doma already knew about her poison. She is further backed into a corner due to Doma now rapidly developing antibodies and adjusting his body against her poison, so that after a mere 5 slashes and injections of poison, he is now resistant to it entirely. Putting all her hopes on injecting a large dose to kill him by using a 6-stab attack, Shinobu attacks him using insect breathing and successfully hits him. However, as she attacks him, he simultaneously attacks her, cutting both her collarbone and ribs and puncturing one of her lungs. Shinobu is caught by Doma as they fell down from the ceiling. He embraces her in a bear hug and begins mocking her and calling her entire attempt to defeat him a waste of effort, assuring her she will live peacefully as a part of him and mockingly asking her for her last words. She spitefully curses him as he begins to kill her. Doma successfully kills and eats the Hashira, just as her disciple Kanao arrives at the scene. Kanao, enraged, launches her flower breathing at Doma, which he avoids with ease, smiling and commenting on how pretty her attack is. Inosuke breaks through the ceiling of the room, protecting Kanao from Doma's attack with his beast breathing. During the battle between Doma and 2 demon slayers, Doma's face suddenly begins to melt. He drops to the floor, one of his arms snapping off, and his crystal children begin to crack and disintegrate as he wonders what's happening. Inosuke asks if it's a trap, but Kanao, having been informed prior to the battle of Shinobu's plan to kill Doma, tells him that it isn't, and that the demon is being melted by the poison Shinobu had in her body when he consumed her. As his head falls to the floor, Doma thinks about how pathetic he must be to have lost to a poisoner like Shinobu, someone who didn't even have the strength to kill a demon by cutting its head. Number 1. Kokushibu. Kokushibu is by far the strongest upper moon demon ever, holding the position of Upper Moon Rank 1. Over 4 centuries ago, Kokushibu was a human by the name of Michikatsu Sugikuni, a former demon slayer and the twin brother of Yoriichi Sugikuni. Because of Yoriichi's birthmark, he was doomed to be sent to the temple and become a priest upon turning 10, while Michikatsu would become head of the house. One day, while Michikatsu was practicing with sword, one of their father's men offered to give Yoriichi some instruction as well. Though he only showed Yoriichi a basic stance, the boy was able to land 4 blows on the man. This incident bewildered Michikatsu, who had never before landed a blow, and he begged his brother to teach him his secret. As Michikatsu studied the sword, he felt envious of his brother, who he felt was squandering his natural physical talent. He also feared that, now that their father likely knew about Yoriichi's immense potential, their roles would be swapped, and he would be the one sent to the temple in Yoriichi's place. Yoriichi recognized this as well and left for the temple before his father could make him a successor. His jealousy of his brother only grew when he read his mother's diary following her death, which revealed that Yoriichi had known everything about their mother's illness and had planned accordingly. From then, Michikatsu resented Yoriichi, who he realized to be not only physically gifted, but a genius as well. He wished for his brother's death, and for the next few years, not hearing anything from him, he believed it to be true. 10 years later, Michikatsu became a samurai and married a woman who gave birth to 2 of his children. One night, a demon attacked his camp and left him the only survivor, but was quickly killed by Yoriichi, who came to his rescue and apologized for not being able to save his subordinates. Seeing the object of his hatred again and twisted by jealousy, Michikatsu abandoned his family and became a demon slayer to train with Yoriichi. Frustrated for being unable to surpass his brother, as well as fearing the fated death of those who awakened their demon slayer marks, Michikatsu was persuaded by Muzan Kibutsuji and became a demon, taking the name Kokushibu. 60 years after becoming a demon, he came face to face with Yorichi for the last time. Wanting to forget his human past, he knew he had to kill his younger brother. Enraged by the feeling of inferiority, he slashed Yorichi's body in half, but inadvertently broke the flute he gave him as a child. Seeing that his brother still thought highly of him even after his transformation, Kokushibu couldn't help but shed a tear. Unable to truly sever his bond with his brother, he decided to keep the flute for himself. Inside Infinity Castle, Kokushibu encounters Mist Hashira, Muichiro Tokito. He then deduces that Muichiro is a descendant of a child he left behind after becoming a demon. The two engage in battle, but Muichiro is easily defeated by Kokushibu, who offers him to become a demon.
Yeah, no shit.
This discussion is, however, interrupted by Genya shooting his Nichiren gun. Kokushibu effortlessly avoids the gunshot, appearing behind Genya and then proceeding to cut off both his arms and his torso in half. As he goes to finish him off, Genya's older brother, Sanemi, appears, stopping the upper moon. Sanemi and Kokushibu then begin their intense duel, with Kokushibu being slightly taken aback at the skill of the Wind Hashira. After some struggling, Kokushibu shows glee at the opportunity to fight such a skilled Hashira. He was about to deal a finishing to Sanemi, but was stopped by the arrival of Gyome, the Stone Hashira. Kokushibu was unable to retain himself, openly stating that he admired Gyome's peak physical form. Following an intense back and forth battle, Gyome reveals his trump card he meant to save for Muzan, his Demon Slayer mark. The battle then begins to pick up. Kokushibu's attacks increase with both intensity and frequency. He is able to sever two of Sanemi's fingers, and both Demon Slayers are reduced to putting all of their efforts into simply avoiding his attacks. Right as it seemed that Sanemi is about to lose, Muichiro rejoins the battle, saving the other Hashira just in time. With the combined force of 3 Hashiras, they finally managed to defeat Kokushibu
Three of
for
them,
good.
huh?